look those up. Images. This has some of them, but I want all the types. Let's go ahead and kill that. I don't know. I thought there we go. I thought these were pretty cool looking, and we could use a lot of ZBrush functionality. Obviously, if you got any questions while we're doing that, I'm happy to give you my 2 cents. Let's try this though. Let's say open link in new tab. Actually, we just need the image. Open image in new tab. I think that'll be a good one. I think that's got all the different shell types and little goopy parts. Yeah, we'll start there. Okay, so if I need that image, if I want to, use this, I'm going to say right click, save image as onto my desktop. I guess we can keep that as a WebP. Let's see if I can change that. So, okay, wake up, Mike. We have this. Let's try something. Image.png. Yes, I do want to change it. Does it still work? Yes, it does. So, you get a WebP image, just rename it to PNG. Probably will work if you rename it JPEG too. But so I've got the image sitting back here in my session. So if I have ZBrush open and I want to model one of those, one of the things I can do is I can go, I don't know if you can see that. Just, if I scooch this down just a little bit, there's a see-through right here. You can just pull that to the right, and now your image will be shown through ZBrush. So if you go through here and you grab, if we want to make, one of this spiral guy right here, we can go through, take a spiral 3D, drag it down to our canvas, go into edit mode, and you're going to see while we're moving this around, you can see your image through that. So that's one way we could do that. So we'll stick with that for now. I'm going to go down here to initialize, and we got a bunch of spirals. Do I want to do this? Let's go through all the ways we can have images sitting here. So that's one way, is the see-through. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that see-through down to 0, and I'm going to scoot my screen back up, maximize that real estate. There we go. Okay, so we can also go in here to texture, import, and because we renamed that WebP to PNG, this is available to us. So on our desktop, we'll just grab this in here, texture, select it, add it, shrink it down. Oh, add it. So texture, this little plus sign. Wait, this one, add to spotlight. So now we can go through here, we can take this opacity, drop that down a little bit, and now I can use Z to go into modeling mode, Shift Z to turn that off, and then Z to turn it back on. Hello! We're just getting started, but if you have any questions about anything at all, you let me know. Oh, and we could even do, so this is a good start for like this little shell down here, this little coil right here, this coil right here, this coil right here. Maybe not that one so much, but any of these like spirally ones, this is a really good start for that, because number one, it goes thick to thin, and you can control how offset it is as well as how many turns it has. So let's play around with that. So coverage, we can go down here, and as I drag that coverage down, you're going to see you're going to get fewer loops around. So this one is starting to match this one. So I'm just going to kind of rotate this around using my basic ZBrush navigation. This one obviously starts a lot thinner and goes to a lot thinner. So we can go down here to the thick, and we can just drag that here, and now we're starting to get, let's scooch, there we go, rotate this around. So now we're starting to get this one here. Hello, we got Himanshu and the Wild Noodlers. How's it going? Like I said, oh, and this one already has a little bit of an offset, which is okay. If this thing was like laying on the ground, which is kind of hard to tell, maybe this kind of offset is fine. If you don't want that offset, if we go over here to displace, this is how you can like make it go in and out. So we'll take that displace down to 0 if you want this to lay flat. And I think we're about done with this one, at least as a start. You can always go through here and like move this around after we're done with this initialize. you're also going to see, like, if you have a custom menu, you're not going to see all your options because we are literally in a primitive initialized state, which means we have very limited things we can do, so that nothing's broken. It just means you don't have all your options available to you because that's not a real sculptable mesh just yet. So let's go back here. Let's go to coverage, and I'm going to crank that coverage up just a tiny bit, and we'll move these around to make this fit a little bit better. Thickness, we can go through here. And if you did want a non-uniform, like thick to thin, I believe that you can. Where's that at? Thickness, radius. I thought there was like a little, maybe I imagined that. Let's just go through these options. So I'm gonna hit Shift Z, turn these off. Let's turn on polyframe and let's switch over to like a skin shader so you can see a little bit better. So coverage is how many spirals you're going to get. Thickness is how overall thick and thin it's going to be. And that's start thickness, and this is end thickness. This is how thin it's going to get. Here's the radius. So this is the overall radius. We'll keep that at 100. And this is, okay, so that'll actually work a little bit better. So when in doubt, just go play around with these options. So here is this inner radius, and then this place, like we already talked about, that's going to push that in and out from the side here. We'll keep that flat, and then this is, I don't know, an extra one, I guess. Twist is interesting. That'll actually take your geometry and twist down. This is something we'll do when we get into some of these more complex forms that, maybe start with a spiral but then kind of go off. You could actually start with this spiral and then just extrude that shape if you want, or there's another way where you can use like the bend deformer and get some cool stuff going. So inner outer twists, how many divisions you have around the object. Let's go ahead and keep this fairly low, like 12. And then how many you have down the length of the object. That's fine, I think. You know what? Let's say 128. Nope, 128. Nope. I'm having a hard time. There we go. So we have the start of our object. Now, I said we can't sculpt on this just yet, but we're close. So if we're pretty in the ballpark of where we want to be, and again, we can finish this out, and I'm going to go in here and we're going to take a look at, yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's looking okay. So if I'm ready to sculpt on this, I have to go in here and say make polymesh 3D. So we'll hit that button, and now you're going to see my poly frame changed here. And now if I hit Shift Z, we can go ahead and store. And so I don't have to keep like rotating this around and matching my reference. We can just be like, okay, I'm going to be matching this one for a while. So just really quickly, here's one way: movie, timeline, show. We're going to put a little dot in there just by clicking in there. If you mess it up, or you decide to change your mind, just drag it out of there and start again. So we'll put it right about here. We'll put a dot in here. So now no matter where I put this object, I can use my arrow keys to snap it back. So now if I go through here and start moving around, it's going to move my entire object, which is okay if you're just kind of dialing in how to move things. One thing I would do is drop if you have your default Z intensity at like 51, I would drop this down maybe into like the 30s. This will make it so that it's not quite as, I don't know. It's one of those things, like if you're doing stylized modeling, dropping your Z intensity on your move brush kind of helps you maintain your, like, have a little more control over your volumes, I guess. Now, one problem we do have is if I want to move this piece separately from this piece, a couple different ways you can do it. Let's go to our brush auto masking. There is a topological you can turn on. In fact, if you go B as in brush, M as in brushes that start with M, there is a move topological in here, and that's basically the move brush with this turned on. Now you could change this range down, like say 1.5, and now when I move this one, it's going to leave a certain radius alone. So you can go through here and start moving these independently from this, because this geometry, as far as how the topology is concerned, is very far away from this topology. It's not like a brush radius thing. So we can hit Shift Z, and now we can go through here and we can start nudging this into shape using that. Now, when you start getting into this area right here, you might have a little bit more issues with it's starting to pick up maybe areas of the mesh that you don't necessarily want. If that is the case, so we'll do Shift Z. Let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to hit Control W, give us a nice bright polygroup here. Another thing you can do is you hit W and then hold down Control and drag down your mesh, and that will mask along your mesh. Now you're going to see by default when I do that, it's a very soft fall off. Sometimes that's really useful for your masking purposes. If you don't like that, go to BTC, which is Transpose Classic, not Transpose Cloth anymore. And now when you drag, you'll see you get a much harsher mask line. So for instance, if I want to control drag along the object here, this will mask out all of this stuff, or even, you know, start in here to start masking. So if you just want to move this end here, you can go through, you can keep topological on and just have this stuff masked, or you can just turn topological off. And now you'll just be manipulating this area here. So it's up to you. If you want to blur this mask out, you can Control Tap, and that'll blur that mask out. You can also go in here to your masking. You could do a mask adjust if you wanted to, but up in here there is a general blur mask, sharpen mask, or you can just Control Tap on your object or Control Alt Tap to sharpen. So you can see it's sharpening up, and then Control Tap to blur. So that'll make it so like you don't have a really harsh fall off if you start getting in there. But anyway, so a couple different ways to go through here and start manipulating your object. Let's go ahead and turn topological back on. Now you're also going to see in this case, this is getting a little thicker than we want in here, perhaps. So I'm going to hold down Shift, with Shift held down, drop my Z intensity way down because this is pretty low poly. And I'm just going to kind of smooth along my object here, and you're going to see it's going to drop that radius down. You could mask and do like a deformation oh boy, where is it? Deformation. Hello, there it is. Deformation, inflate negative, or inflate balloon negative. But in this case, just doing an overall smooth should get you what you need. So, and again, we're making this pretty exact, but you don't have to be this diligent if you don't feel like it. Now, if you did overdo it, or if you found an area that was, and we're assuming that this is a fairly consistent radius all the way through the object, even though we can't necessarily see all sides of the object at once, because I don't live in four-dimensional space. So here, if we wanted to, we can go into our inflate brush. So I don't know where that is, inflate N, or I can hit my hotkey and we can go, oh, speaking of, let's pull up my websites. YouTube, ArtStation. What else do we usually use? I guess that's enough. Okay, so if you want to know more about ZBrush, I have a channel I haven't touched in months, but feel free. And then 162 comments. Sorry, y'all. And then here is my ArtStation page. There's ZBrush What's New tab right here, so you can go to Intro to ZBrush, all the What's News and up until recently. And then on here too, go into, you just scroll down, ZBrush What's New playlist. Boop, right there. So we have our first little coil shell. Ooh, let me get back here. Oh, sorry, the spiral. Just start here with the, go into your, what's this called? Quick palette, your tool palette, and then just grab a spiral 3D. You could also do some of, we'll try the Helix 3D as well. This is a fun one to play with. We might use it for some of those. But in this case, spiral, oh, that's where I saw it. Helix 3D has a few more options that we're going to play with. Spiral 3D was good enough for this one. So we're going to go through here. And we got this going pretty good. Oh yeah, and then the inflate brush. So if you want to go through here and just do a, you know, kind of inflate along here, you can thicken these things up. And then hold down Shift to smooth it out. So now this coil didn't quite make the full turn that we wanted it to. Not a huge deal. So in this case, again, you can hit W and then Control drag along. And then you can go through here. You can, again, Control tab to blur that out if you want to. You can coil this a little sharper. We can also continue extruding this out. One way to do that, let's hold down Control. Let's go in here to Mask Lasso. I'm going to Control and then Alt, and that'll unmask this end piece, and then we can just hold down Control and drag, and that'll pop out an extra edge ring, and then we can just kind of rotate around and just continue coiling this around. This is going to be a little bit gross. That's okay. And while you're doing this too, it's not centered, so we're just going to go to Unmask Mesh Center. So as we're dragging these out, you could be scaling at the same time. So again, Unmask Mesh Center, Control Drag Out, rotate, scale down, Control Drag Out, rotate the geometry, uniform scale down, Control Drag Out, rotate, uniform scale, like so. So just keep on keeping on. There we go, scale down. And then to smooth this out, we'll hold down Shift, and you can hold down Shift. We drop that Z intensity way down. If you want to maintain your volumes a little bit better, you can hold down Shift and then let go of Shift as you're smoothing, and that'll just kind of push the geometry over the existing volume rather than just holding down Shift and having it kind of shrink your geometry. So in this case, I think that works a little bit better. It's kind of just smoothing the geometry over the predefined volumes. So now we've coiled a little bit more, we've moved, we've smoothed. There you go. So we got a start of a nice little shell. And if you wanted to, say you wanted to like rebuild this geometry, it gets a little heavier in here and a little lighter. I don't know. However you want to do this, you can go in here to geometry if for some reason you were so inclined. I'm going to pull these caps off before I ZRemesh because I can always recap things pretty easily, but ZRemesh, I want it to focus on the overall body. I don't want it to worry about the caps right now. So one easy way to do that, I hope, it doesn't matter. There's another easy way to do this if this doesn't work. So we're going to go down here to polygroups, and we're going to say group by normals, and that's going to look at this 45 max angle. And all of these are pretty similar except for this one. It's got that sharp fall off, so it's going to grab that cap. And it didn't quite grab this cap. Not a big deal. We're going to hold down, go into your BZM, your Z modeler brush, hold down Alt, and then just paint on that one. And then while you're painting, if you let go of Alt, or just keep tapping Alt, it'll just keep changing your polygroup. So now we've got our caps marked. I'm going to hold down Control Shift Tap on the blue so it hides those caps. And then I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. Geometry, submenu, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. And now that I've done that, now when I go to ZRemesh this, which is Geometry ZRemesher, we could say, let's do half ZRemesh. That'll give us, it'll just kind of rebuild our geometry. And then if we want to go through and recap, if you wanted to do that, you could also just keep hitting half if you want to. I don't know. Oh, another thing too, if you want nice even quads, just drop your adaptive size down to 0. That'll keep your quads even. Let's say you rebuilt it and you like the result. I'm going to hover over an edge with my Z modeler brush, BZM, hold down space bar, and we're going to say close convex hole. And we're just going to just tap on there, Control Shift Tap, Control W to make that its own polygroup. And then same thing down here. Now in this case, what we could do is we could tap and then drag, and that'll pull it out to a point, and then you could even drag to the right and add more divisions here. Let's make that a little bigger so you can see. So I'm pulling, so instead of just tap or dragging or tapping and then isolating this, we're going tap and drag. That's giving you a height. Left and right is the height, and then up and down is adding more divisions. So you could do, I don't know, something like this. And then Control Shift Tap those polygroups here, and there we go. Okay. And then if you want to make this all one polygroup again, just hit Control W. Or again, like you said, if you want to go through here and hold on Alt and paint this one, you can. So that's one way to do that. Let's do Shift Z. Let's do a helix for some of these, and I'll go back to questions. Sorry about that. Let me get my water. Thank you, Luck Lori. Let's see. When I'm sculpting, I have issues making my character smooth. It looks clumpy. So you know what? We'll touch on that. We're going to be doing some creaturey sculpts. So I'll go through and we'll do a lumpy sculpt, and then I'll show you how you can, it's really kind of You could change your brush settings to kind of smooth things out depending on what your topology looks like, but I'll also use like ZRemesher and low res topology to kind of smooth things out and then subdivide. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I think we can help you out there. I'm doing good, Karthik. Happy to be back. I haven't turned my personal computer on in the past, like literally I did a live stream, haven't turned it on until today. So every time I do a live stream, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna live stream more and I'm gonna get into my emails again, and I haven't yet, but soon. Yeah, it has been a while. I'm so sorry. I've been super busy, but it's been for good stuff. So let's do this one. So again, if you want to catch up, if we want to do that real quick. So here's a spiral, grab a spiral 3D. This one already has kind of some of the settings built in. But when you start out with it, you're going to see the polygroups are white as well. So that we have this initialized state. As soon as we hit make polymesh 3D, that turns it into a sculptable piece of geometry. We can go in here with your move brush, but you're going to see your initialized settings changed. These are completely different. So once you have a sculptable polymesh, your settings are going to look like this. If you have a, here's the original spiral. These are an actual, like an initialized state. So if you wanted to start here, you could go through here and do like a displace, kind of, pop this out, go through and change the inner and outer radius. Also the thickness, overall thickness here, like so, and start making some of these shapes. Now, instead of using the spiral this time, we're going to go into our palette and we're going to grab that Helix 3D. So by default, everything it's kind of got a, Shift C to turn this off. So we have a radius here. So you have, instead of having just numbers, you have these little profile curves. So right here it has a lump in the middle. So as I drag this lump here, we can squeeze it in, we can push it out. If I want to get rid of this lump, just drag it out and drop it. Same thing as in this thing here. If we want to just drag that movie timeline out of there, we no longer have a timeline saved, and then you can just tap in there. Same thing down here. Oops. Same thing down here. If you want to add that again, just tap and drag. In fact, here's a cool thing. So we can change that radius to be sharp or soft. If you want to make it, instead of a fall off, just drag off and then without letting go, drag back in, and now you'll get a sharp fall off. So that's how you do a like a sharp angle. And if you want to drag off and drag back on, that'll give you that soft fall off. FYI. So we'll go ahead and make this straight for now. Let's see, which one we're going to do. Let's do this one here. So this is going to go thick to thin over time. And I think we can do that instead of the spiral. We're going to use the helix. So profile. This is going to be the overall shape, which I think we want to probably leave alone. Let's see, thickness. There we go. So this one we want to go thin at the top, and then this is thick on the right-hand side. Yeah, that's about right. And then we don't want that many turns, so I'm thinking coverage is where we're at. So coverage, we're going to drop down, and we're going to say like 1, 2, 3, 4.5. 1. Let's scoot this around. Wait, how does this? Oh, okay. I might have to do a flip horizontal. I can't do it right now. That's close enough. So when I get this, make this an actual make polymesh 3D, I'll show you how to flip this. So we got 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns. Now I think this one gets a little shrinkier here, and like I said, if you don't want it to go, if you want it to stay thicker for longer and then get thinner faster, you can go in here and add a dot, and then you can give it a little bit of fall off, so that way it stays or even gets thicker in the middle or thins out in the middle. So you have a lot of control over these shapes. But I think that this is a general thickness, a general thinness is fine, and then I might also want it to coil faster. So it spreads out that initial radius here, and then the end radius. Yeah, we're going to coil that up a little bit more, and then twist. This is the twisting of geometry, which is fine, but we don't need it. Z offset. And I'm just kind of playing with settings here Radius, I think's okay. Profile, coverage. This might be close enough. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's do... And if we look down, this is the Z offset tile, twist, estivate. Oh, and here's your how many divisions you have. All right. I think we're getting somewhat close. Play around with these settings. Now, again, we are going to have to like flip this one around, but if that's close enough, let's go ahead and say make polymesh 3D, and then I'm going to do, if we're just looking at it from the side here, in fact, let's turn on our floor. So we're Y up and across the X-axis is this way. So we're going to go to deformation, mirror across the X-axis. That'll flip it over on that side. So now we've got this guy set up. We can go ahead, and again, if we want to, we got rid of our movie, but if we want to go ahead and kind of just position this a little bit, we could just, and again, we can have multiple. So we can go through here and we can tap anywhere in that movie timeline and then use our brush. And then if we switch back to what we were working on earlier, we could go through and be like, okay, this is my other movie. I want to match this. We'll just tap in here. So that way I can still use this one. And then if I switch back to this polymesh here, I could switch back to this one. Okay, there's that. Now let's play around a little bit with something that would be a little more difficult. Like even this one here, yeah, it starts as a spiral or a helix, and then it kind of just goes out and gets thicker, and you can't really control it. This one's pretty straightforward. This one is a straight up spiral or helix. But any of these other weirdo shapes that might be a little bit more difficult, we'll talk about that. So I'm going to go out of edit mode, say always switch, Control N to clear my canvas, and then we'll just grab a cylinder, drag out, go into edit mode. Now again, this is a primitive cylinder here. We're going to take X size, we want to shrink it down to 0. We want to make it pretty thin, let's say 20, and then Y size also maybe 20, and then we're going to crank up our, and this one we'll keep pretty regular, we'll say maybe 16, and then V divides, we're really going to crank this up, because what we're going to end up doing is pulling this geometry around and making all sorts of weird spirals and shapes. So I want to make sure I got tons of geometry in here to support that. So V divides, we're going to crank that up to 128. If we're happy enough with this, we'll say make polymesh 3D. We'll hit W on our keyboard. It's already right down the middle. So, and I'll show you different ways to do this too if you want, but we can go through here, hit this little gear icon, and we'll do bend curve. And now we have a start little dot we can play with and an end little dot. And we have this little curve resolution cone. So we can bring this up one, we can bring it up a bunch, but for now, you probably want to start simple. So we'll say we'll put like 5 in there. And now we can start like bending this around. And every time you touch one of these, you have a twist option to kind of twist your geometry around. You have an overall scale option, and then you have a squeeze option. So pretty cool. A lot of flexibility there. Let's see here. Harsh. How's it going? Fine out there and going around. Ask if there a way you could, yeah, I'm okay-ish. Render jewelry inside a ZBrush and 360 video. If you made a video, can you please share the link? Gosh, I want to say I've done a turntable. Have I? Whoa, turn my caps lock off. Okay, yeah. Red shell. Okay, so if you are doing this, this will kind of cover both. If you just want to do like, okay, let's do this. We got our cool little, let's say we want to do a turntable of this. We have our movie timeline here that we're using. We can actually use this to like move our camera around, but that's not really a turntable. But if I wanted to just render out a turntable of this, I can go into our movie here, and we could say, instead of window, I'm going to do document. So it's just capturing our document here. Instead of medium, which is going to shrink it down half, I'm going to say large, the full document resolution. In fact, if I want to say like turn off proportion and say I want to do a 1920 by 1080 resize, yes. Control N to clear your canvas. Now, make sure you go in here to document and you do grab the zoom and pull back. You can't really see the background, so I'm going to go down here to back. I'm going to choose like just a slightly different gray color. So if I go in here to document and say actual, this is the actual document size. However, if I drag this out, go into edit mode, and I do a and I was to render this, and it looks like, okay, this is going to be pretty big on my screen in my render. Actually, if you take your document and zoom out, here's the bounds of your 1920 by 1080. So this will show you, instead of the actual pixels of your 1920 by 1080, depending on the resolution you're working at in ZBrush, this will show you the border. So this is actually, if I want to fill the screen, I actually have to be this big. So now if we want to do a turntable of this, we need to go back into movie. We'll do a turntable. And now it's just going to make the turntable. You're going to see when I do this, we now have a delete button. So now I could go, I just did the turntable. I can export this, turn on H for high quality, and then you can say export. We'll drop this right on our desktop. Yeah. ZBrush movie MP4 is fine. Save. That'll go through and render it, and you're going to see, oh, I got like a little fade in, fade out, and a ZBrush thing. But it made the movie, right? However, we probably want to go here to overlay image, opacity down to 0. We probably want to go to title image, fade in, fade out down to 0. In fact, we could even go in here to modifiers and say cursor size down to 0, just in case. You know, if you don't want to catch your cursor size. Spin frames and spin cycles. If you wanted to do more than one rotation, you could crank that to the right. If you wanted to do more frames, you can crank that to the right. Or if you want to do less, you want to do like 36 frames. And now it also, if I double click this and we watch it, you're going to see we have our polyframe turned on. If you don't want that, just turn your polyframe off. And then if you wanted to render smoother, you can hit Control D and start smoothing this out. I'm going to go over here to Geometry, Dynamic, turn on Dynamic, and then take Smooth Subdiv, put it up to 3. And then I kind of like the polyframe. I just don't want to have the line on there. So now you got a little bit of color, and now we can just kind of render this. And then Shift D turns off Dynamic, and then D turns it back on. And that's it. So we have it now. We do have a movie sitting there, so you can keep stacking on the same movie in memory. So you can just like render out another turntable, render out another turntable. So you can have like 5 turntables rendered in a row, and then just hit export, and it'll render all 5 out as one video. If you don't want that, delete. No, I don't want to save. So now we can say, okay, and again, this one's only going to do 36. And in fact, if you hit BPR, this will give you your shadows. So let's go in here to our render properties. You could do shadows, ambient occlusion, subsurface scattering, wax preview, whatever you want. But for our case, we have shadows turned on. So I'm going to go in here to our shadow properties. We could take that strength. Also, we could turn our floor on if you want. So now when you hit BPR, it'll render a shadow on the floor. So while we're doing this, we could say, give me our floor strength. We could drop that down. Our global strength, we could drop that down. I'm going to crank our raise up a little bit and take that angle and just put it up just a tiny bit. So now when I hit BPR again, you're going to see these shadows are going to get a little lighter. And you know what? Let's maybe that angle a little higher. That'll start kind of blurring the angle. Now, the thing is, and we'll move this down so we can see the floor a little bit. So we'll do a BPR render. However, as soon as I touch the canvas again, it's going to knock us out of the BPR render mode. And it's just going to render like a viewport. So what you want to do is you want to hit BPR render first, and then go up here and hit turntable. And now as it's rendering the turntable, it will render the BPR settings you have. Not all the shadows are nice, etc. And it'll just render that turntable. Now, I haven't got to the jewelry part yet, but if we wanted to render this as a jewel, that's where it gets into, well, that's going, this red shift. So let's go home. If you scroll down, you're going to see ZBrush 2025, what's new, view full playlist. This will give you quick start and in-depth. Between these two, it should give you how to do exactly what I did, only using Redshift, and that's where you get into like materials for rendering glass and jewels and stuff. But again, if we go in here and we say export desktop, we'll just save over that movie. Yes. There we go. So now if we double click this and then we say loop it, there we go. So it'll just keep looping. So that's our render with our shadows. It's kind of hypnotic. Cool. But while we're talking about it, let's go back into ZBrush here. So our document is now 1920 by 1080. If you want to go back to just like filling the screen with your document, go in here to document, say W size on, hit new, say yes. Oh wait, no, we don't want to save changes. Document, W size, new, no, Control N to clear your canvas, drag it out, go into edit mode, and now you're kind of back how you started. All your document just takes up the pixels that you're using, etc. And then as far as Redshift rendering, if I remember correctly, render properties, nope. Redshift renderer, turn on. Also, you probably want to bring up your Maxon app and then make sure you have you probably have some updates. So we're up to date on ZBrush. Redshift, there's an update. So make sure you have the latest Redshift. And then in here, this is where we get into going in here and grabbing, do we have like a quick, we got tinted glass, sapphire, there we go, boom. So these are presets with colored materials, emerald and sapphire. How cool is that? Water, pearl, glass hollow. And then you have the poly paint. These will look good. Now you can say sapphire. That'll select the material. Give it a second to load up. So here's a sapphire version. And then if you're so inclined, if I remember correctly, watch the video I sent. That'll take you more in depth. But if we go in here to our modifiers, this use material color is set to 1. So like the trans scatter base, it's pulling from these. If you don't want that and you want to use your poly paint, just set that to 0, and then it should use your poly paint. But we'll go ahead and keep it on sapphire for now. So now when I go through here and hit VPR render with Redshift renderer on, it's going to give me a there we go. Do a little bucket render here. Look at that. How fancy. Ooh. And then remember, now that we have this render, if we were to now go, and I'm not going to do it because it's going to take a long time. Not that long, but longer than I want to do during a live stream. Go into your movie. Where's my movie? There we go. Go in here, and then if I just hit Redshift render, right? If I hit this turntable, hit delete first. So we don't have a movie stored in there. Now if I was to render a turntable, it would render using the Redshift render. So you'd see the reflections and maybe even the caustics if we turn the floor on. I don't remember if there was caustics on or not. But now you're going to have a floor plane that's catching shadows, I would imagine. Oh, you know what? It might not. I forgot that this is a little bit different. Because, okay, here's the other thing too. Sapphire has filled the floor plane, so you have to tell it. Okay, it's all coming back to me. I've been out of the game for a while. So if we let this render, if we go down here, there is a default floor color you can choose, but I think it also has, there it is. Here's the floor material is flat. So we probably want to change this floor material to, I don't know, let's say plastic white. And then the floor color, gray. So now let's re-render that again. Sorry, so now we've got a floor plane. We got our sapphire material. It's going to have a shadow. Again, like I said, this will walk you through how to set up your HDR reflection map image, and then your lights, glowing emissives, quality settings over here, render quality and error thresholds and stuff like that, and going from progressive to bucket render. But that's how you can start doing some jewel stuff inside of ZBrush. Hope that makes sense. Check out that link, and we'll let this finish out. Ah, look at that. That's cool. Like a little blown glass thing. Neat. Okay. So we like that. We'll switch back to skin shader. We'll turn off redshift just for now. Okay, so back to this. So we'll turn line back on and we'll do shifty. Okay, so Shift Z, we're back here. So we've done this one. We'll turn off our floor. Okay, oh, so we're back here. We did our poly cylinder initialize, where we went through here and we basically shrank it. Let's go back here. So we have our original initialize state with these initialize options. In fact, we wanted to do, X size. And we want to drop this down to 10. Tab 10, enter. There we go. So a very thin, you could even do inner radius. If you wanted to do hollow, you could do like an inner radius like this. Cool. Z size, you can shrink it down. H divide, V divides, taper. If you wanted to taper thick to thin already, you can. We're going to do that. I mean, I guess it's not a bad idea. If what you're matching is generally thick to thin and you just want to bend it in the right shape, maybe taper might be the way you go, but I'm going to show you how to do that after the fact. So let's say we have this here, we like it, and we want to go in here to make polymesh 3D. Now, if you messed up and you're like, oh, I made make polymesh 3D, but it's too thick, again, just go into what we did earlier, which is group by normals. So your poly group, group by normals, where is it? Group by normals, max angle set to 45. That'll go ahead and give you a poly group on all these different sides. So now you can just go in here to your ZModeler brush and you could do like extrude poly group all. And then instead of extruding, just hold down shift and that'll pull along that surface normal. So now you can make this thicker or thinner. Another option you could have is hit W and then hold down Alt and then just scale non-uniformly along the Y-axis here. So it's like here's uniform. And then here's like, oh, here's my Z and here's my X. Instead of doing like, okay, let me hold down shift and do 0.7 and hold down shift and do 0.7. Instead of doing that, just hold down Alt and scale along that long axis and that'll thin it out. A couple different ways. Cool. So we'll hit W and in fact, there's more in here in your deformers you could have done too. But cool. So we have our tube. Got a lot of divisions. And now we want to make like a weird shape, like maybe this bend with a little curl. Or this long one, or this crazy one where it's just like, wow, whatever. We'll go ahead and do this one down here. So we're going to hit, let's go ahead and, if we're going to match something, we want to, I don't know, put this here, I guess, and we'll just drag these out and we'll put another dot in there. So hit W, we're going to go in here and we're going to switch this to bend curve. And again, this is your resolution. So if you wanted to start with like 2 and then you want to say, okay, I've got a thick end here, it's about that thickness, it's going to eventually go to thin. So I'm going to take this one here and we're just going to do a scale. So that's how you can do an overall taper using just your bend curve deformer. Now before we're done, we're going to go back in here to the resolution slider and we're going to add a couple dots. So this one we're going to swing around here, and then this one we're going to pull here, and we're just going to start lining up these ends. And we're obviously going to need more resolution because this one has quite a bit that it needs. So we're going to go here, we'll do another resolution here, and we'll just keep trying to match this. And this one actually has, now again, you could just get the main body, and then for all these coils, just go through and control drag around if you're so inclined. But I'll leave that up to you. We could also go through here and just, I'm going to start stacking more dots in this area here and less dots through here. And then we'll go to a resolution slider. We'll crank that up one more. And again, every time we do that, we're just getting more fidelity for our coils here. And you know what? We're gonna. As I'm doing this, I'm starting to see a lot more options available to us. But this will be cool. So as we're going through here, if you want to choose any one of these, you could go through here. And like I said, you could start twisting just this little area here. You could go through and just scale this area in and out, or you could go in here and like, you know, squeeze here. So that'll kind of give you that shape. In this case, I don't know that I would actually use this. I'll show you another option. But for something like this, in fact, let's take our undo history slider. I'm just going to drag this back. For something that's just like crazy worm that goes thick to thin, I would probably use this for something more like this now that I'm seeing this. So I'm going to hit W here. We're going to take this resolution slider and we're going to start simple first. So you kind of want to be like, okay, here's my start, and I don't know, here's my end. And if it is just haphazard worm body, this is where you can just go through here and just start, you know, go to the side and make sure you're like coiling up and down and around, you know, get your basic start and end positions, and then go through here and just start adding more resolution. You get the idea. It's pretty self-explanatory as far as how this thing works. So also I may have overdone it a little bit. I thought I'd be doing crazier stuff with this geometry because I put in a lot of divides along here. We could simplify this with ZRemesher after the fact, but this gives you a lot of leeway. This allows you to go through here with your bend curve deformer and really tax that geometry, and it still gives you plenty of wiggle room for making a weird worm shape. And then we'll add more resolution in here, and then we'll just start, you know, going nuts, just going absolutely nuts on this worm shape. So bend curve, and then again, while you're doing this, if you're like, you know what, this starts actually a little thicker through here, just go through here and grab that scale slider. And then if it starts thinning out even more, just grab these dots here and just scale them in. So between that and twist and scale and stuff, you got a pretty good control over making your little worm body. That's another way. Now, let's go in here. I'm going to grab a plane 3D, and immediately we're going to say make polymesh 3D. If it disappears, it's because it's single-sided. So if you wanted to, you could go down here to display properties and you could turn on double, and that way you can see both sides. But I'll keep this off and we'll just look at the side we can see. Shift Z. Now, if I want to make like this shape we were trying to do, I could literally just drag out a curve and create that. Now there's actually, now that I say that, there's a couple ways we could do this, but we'll start simple. So we want to go thick to thin on a curve. And if we want to zoom in a little bit, we'll hit Z and we'll scale this up so we can see a little bit better. And then we'll hit Z again. If you have your darkest blacks are going transparent in your image, go up here to your intensity and just drag that to the right. And that'll make your super dark blacks just a dark gray. That'll get rid of that transparency thing. So we'll put this here, we'll drag this out, we'll put another dot in there. And now I'm going to make a curve on here. Now, a couple different ways you can make curves. One way is B, C, and there is a curved tube, and there's also a curved flat. I might be inclined to use curved flat, but if you want to use curved tube, we can start there. Now, ideally, while you're dragging your curve out, it'll snap to the underlying surface, but in this case, you're going to see it kind of doesn't. To make that snap, let's go in here to our picker, where it is. Also, I should tell you, as you're dragging this out, as you hover over this, it has a blue. Let's get into the basics here. If you're lost or you're like, what the hell is this curve stuff? That's when you can go in here and you could go to my channel, for instance, and you could type in, what is this, curve tube? And I probably have, yeah, a whole bunch of stuff on like curve brush overview. That'll walk you through curve brush functionality, that kind of thing. But I'll walk you through the basics. So as you hover over the object, you have a blue, and then if we go in here to stroke, let's go ahead and get rid of all these menus. Stroke. I'm going to open up all of these curve options. So curve mode is on. It's a curve brush, so it has curve mode turned on. Bend start, if you do bend end is off, so that means when we're moving this around, this one isn't going to bend. You can have bend start and bend end. So now as you're moving this, the ends won't lock. Liquid allows you to kind of pull back along and kind of get rid of a curve and then pull out a curve. I want to say similar with elastic, but that kind of pulls along the entire. You can see how it's kind of pulling as you're pulling out. It's adding more. Let's turn those off. Oh, there's lock, start, and lock in. So if you want to lock, start, and lock in, that'll keep those stagnant or fixed, and then you can kind of pull along here. Blah, blah, blah. Repel strength we're not going to get into for this in particular. As line is also useful if you want to just kind of pull a line straight out. But you're going to see, again, it's not snapping on our object, so we'll discuss that. And in fact, if you see there's a little rubber band when you get close to here, if you get to the rubber band, let's turn off as line, you can continue dragging this out. And in fact, you could even start dragging from this section back in, and this section back in, maybe. You should be able to like connect these points and it'll redraw it, but I seem to have a problem doing that. Now, anyway, let's undo all that. And let's make it so when we drag out our curve brush, it sticks to the underlying surface because that's helpful. And this is for any curve brush. Picker, orientation, we're going to do continuous orientation, and depth, I think we'll do continuous Z. Let's say continuous. Let's see how that does. There we go. That'll stick it on the object. Now, it's going right down the middle, which in our case is probably fine. We're going to split the mesh out anyways. If you don't like that, you can go in here to your brush menu, and you could do depth. And instead of having it embed 100%, we can drag this out. So now when we drag here, it'll kind of, we can actually make it so it's just sitting right on top. So embedded 100. So now when I'm dragging this out, it's sitting pretty much right on top of that mesh. So now that we've done that, Shift Z, snap this back. So now we can start dragging our curve out if you wanted to, and then I'll get your overall shape, but it's not going thick to thin, right? So let's go in here to our, dry. I just saw Groovy, and this is actually, speaking of worms, do I have? I swear I made one. There he is. Similar to doing this right here, you could use all of the things we're talking about, go through here and make a little worm shape using like bend, curve, deformer stuff. I used to have a time lapse, 2019, 2018. You know what? These old videos. There we go. I guess you can see a little bit of the making of. I swear I have a making of him somewhere, but I guess I didn't. I don't know, it's on my channel somewhere, I guess. But anyway, Earthworm Jim. So we're going through here and we're making a tube, right? And we wanted to go, wanted to go thick to thin. So that's where we go in here to our curve options. Go in here to curve modifiers. We have it set to intensity, but it's not doing anything, right? Let's turn on size, and now when we drag this out, it's going to go from thin to thick. We want to flip this around, so we can say flip horizontal. In fact, you can even just tap to update, and it'll update your curve. And that's another thing too. So if you drag, so here it is blue, so that means it's manipulating. And let's turn off bend end, bend start, lock end. So as we're moving this around, it'll start, and in fact, you could even turn snap on, and it'll kind of snap to the underlying surface while you're doing this. So while we're manipulating this with the blue, if we go out here to where your cursor turns red, and we tap like S on your keyboard, or go up here to draw size, and drag this around, and then tap again, that'll change the overall radius. So now we're going thick to very thin. If I want to continue this curve, we could go through here and just continue this curve here. And what else? Oh, so let's say we don't want to go that thin. I'm going to take this and drag it up and then tap to update. And now you're going to see it's going to go to thick to pretty thin. So you can use this to kind of continue updating this. And then as we're going through here, if it's not getting quite thick enough, that's okay. you can always go through here and again use your inflate brush. And also if this is getting like really wobbly in here, you can go in here. There is a smooth option. That's 6 is the hotkey for that. So if you just want to tap 6 on your keyboard or tap this little smooth button here, if I tap 6, you're going to see it'll smooth the curve out, but the geometry didn't update. You just got to tap the geometry and now it'll update. So, boy, it really doesn't want to. We got snap turned on, bend start, bend end as line. Okay, I guess that's doing a pretty good job. So that's another way you could do this. This might be interesting. So let's continue this thought. So let's say, okay, this is about what I want here. Let's turn on liquid so I can pull maybe elastic. Yeah, let's turn on elastic so I can kind of push this back a little bit. And then we'll turn elastic off. And then I'll tap 6. And then I'll touch. And then I'll go through here. And then, so right now, if you see that rubber band is actually pretty long. That's a curve snap distance. So if you want, it's like 60, so you can drop that down to like 10. So that way you can be a little more granular with your continuation. Okay. Calm down. There we go. So temporarily you can go in here and like make things thinner, so it's a little bit easier to see your geometry that you're coiling. And then if you want to go back in and thicken it up, you certainly can do that. And again, we'll hit 6, smooth it out, tap to update, S, update that thickness, tap to update. So we've got something going here. And this is using our IMM brushes. 6. Oh, I accidentally hit 5, which is snapshot. So you can actually hit 5 to take a snapshot, and that will keep your original curve and then to give you a duplicate curve. Useful for this type of thing if you wanted to do tentacles, which we'll get to in a second. So let's say we like this. It has a curve still associated with this. If you want to get rid of that, you can just tap away from your object, or if it's difficult to do that, just go in here and hit curve functions, delete. So now we have a curved mesh sitting on top of this one. So just Control Shift tap either one. It's all one polygroup, right? And now we can go in here to geometry, subtool, split, hidden. So now we have our body here on one, and then our plane. If we don't want our plane anymore, you just delete that. So now Shift Z, stick this back in here. Let's go back to a better camera. Drag this out, put this back in. So now we're back into like, okay, let's use our inflate brush or masking or whatever to go through here, and we'll smooth this side out and we'll inflate this side up. And now you've got one way to do that body. Another way, let's go back here to the polyplane, make polymesh 3D, put this back on. You could, if you're so inclined, go in here to say, let me see if I remember how to do this. Oh, let's try this. Let's do curve flat. So this will give you it's the exact same thing, only it's just going to give you a strip of geometry, which you may think is like, well, why would you want to do that? It just gives you the same amount of control, but you don't have to worry about like the 3-dimensionality of it. It'll just be like, okay, get the tube about where you want it. And this one is already got all the right settings here. Or it seems to be behaving nicer without having all those settings. So get the tube however you want, and then as you go through here, then you can just do like a split unmask points in this case, or mask points. And then you can go through here. If you want to make this like a, it's not going to give you thick to thin, but if you want to just make tubes this way, this is where you can go in here and say like extrude, polygroup all, you can just extrude this out. And then hit Control W. I'm going to do an uncrease all. That's under your geometry crease to get rid of those creases. And I'm just going to mark these ends and then grab these here, say delete hidden. And now if you hit D for dynamic, now you've got a tube. And if you like this geometry, or you just want to hit Control D, that'll give you real geometry, and then we'll say delete lower. So now you can use like a flat plane to go through and just create really simple tubes. Or bend curve. You can do bend curve with a flat plane instead of doing it on actual 3D geometry if you want. But that isn't even what I wanted to show you. What I wanted to show you, and we still have a curve sitting in here. Again, just the curve functions delete. What I wanted to try was brush. So BI brush insert, and then by default you have like primitives. You could do this with anything, but we'll just start with IMM primitives, not H, but just regular IMM primitives. We'll hit M on our keyboard and we'll just choose a very small, like this polysphere is fine. So as I go through here, it's set to drag rect, so which means I can just drag out an IMM brush here. If you're so inclined, you could go in here with any IMM brush. You can go in here and turn on curve mode. So now you can make a curve and it'll stack these end to end if you want. And in fact, you could turn on size, go thick to thin. Now you're going to see it's not going to go thick to more dots. It's going to kind of stretch them out to go thin. That's just kind of how it works. But again, this gives you all that curve functionality, and you could even go in here to curve step. If we drag this back, that will stack them. So now they're kind of overlapping. So now it's turning into like kind of a single tube, right? Interesting. What else? Curve mode. Yeah. Neat. Now, that's not even what I wanted to show you. So we're going to go through here, and we have our IMM set to drag rect, and we have curve mode off. So again, as we're dragging this out, if we hold down Control while we're dragging out, it'll make them, or start dragging out and then tap Control, it'll make it your brush size, so this will be all uniform if you want. Or you could change this to drag dot, and then as you're dragging it out, it'll just be the exact same size. So again, brush size is determining how big these are, and you can just kind of drag out copies. But check this out. What if we switch it to dot stroke? And now, as we go through here, you can just literally, let's take our draw size really small. You could literally just go through here, and I'm drawing that sphere over and over and over again, and they're all kind of stuck next to each other, which you may be thinking like, well, that's cool, but like if I go through here and start moving stuff around, they'll because we have topological turned on, it's seeing the individual little spheres in there, so it's picking them out one by one. Just turn topological off. You can move this as a whole component. And if you want to make it one actual contiguous piece of geometry, you probably know where I'm going with this. You could do geometry Dynamesh. Just hit that Dynamesh button. Wait, before we do that, let's do a Control Shift Tap split like we did before. Split hidden. So now this is on its own section here. And now if we do a Dynamesh here, let's crank that resolution up. And in fact, if we drag off the resolution slider and just pick here, that'll give you the resolution that it currently has. Although in this case, we probably want to drag that up. There we go. So now it's all one contiguous piece. We can go through here with our shift brush. Let's hold down shift, drag our Z intensity up to 100. And now we can go through here and it's all one piece. And you might be thinking like, well, now it's all one piece of crappy geometry. That's okay, because remember, you can go through here and you can ZBrush this result. So you can ZBrush this to get you new geometry. This kind of stuck them together, so you need to be careful about that. But that's another way. Now there was something else. Think. Oh yeah. That's all fine and good, right? Cool, totally cool. Another thing you can do, which is also totally cool, is, and this gets really neat. And this might actually be better for the tentacle stuff. So let's do this. Let's say we've got a body that we like and we want to kind of start making a little tentacle guy in here. So first, I'm going to go through here. We're going to say, let's scale this out. Let's mush this out. Hold down shift and smooth and let go of shift so it maintains our volumes. We want to stuff a little guy in there. So again, BI brush insert IMM primitives, not with H. We'll grab a little polysphere. We're going to switch this back to drag rect, so we can just drag this out. And again, if you want it to be embedded a little more by default, we'll take this embed and we'll say 0. So now when I drag out, it'll be kind of stuck halfway in there. We'll say split mass points. So now we have a little tentacle face guy we can start making cool stuff with. So if we want to, we can start dragging tentacles right out of here. One way to do that is we can go in here to BS snake hook, BSH, and then turn on your Sculptris Pro. So while we're doing this, instead of going in here and dynameshing and then, you know, whatever, you can go through here and literally start making tentacles. Snake hook. There we go. It'll start updating your geometry on the fly as you go. So you can see it's tessellating on the fly. So we can go through here and again, just start dragging tentacles off. In fact, there's BS snake hook, snake sphere that will actually go through here and do some really interesting let me see. There we go. I wonder why it's having such a hard time giving me that resolution. There we go. So you can actually use this, and all of this stuff you can look up on my channel. I think there's like a modifier at 100, and the lower this is, the more it follows the brush stroke rather than coming straight at you like at the camera. But anyway, you can use this to create tentacles, as well as if we go in here to B. I want to say there was a you could use these as well, but there's also a BS, yeah, the snake curve. So you can go through here and you can like drag a curve on here and then pull out, and that'll kind of give you a nice I don't know, like a really cool, weird, I don't know. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do, but look those up if you're so inclined. Now, back to a couple different ways. We've already talked about, like, okay, if you want to go through here, I'm just going to do this really quick. I'm going to turn off Sculptris Pro. If you have, let's say, like a bend curve you've already made, you can literally go through here and say, okay, I'm going to start making a tentacle, but I want total control. So I'm going to put a little tentacle on here. I'm going to do a quick split mask points, hit W, and then we're going to go right in here to a, come on, there we go, bend curve. Let's drop that resolution way down. So now we've got one tentacle going, and we want it to kind of shrink as it gets further away and maybe scale up as it gets thicker. So you can go through here and start making your little tentacle curves. And then once you're done, you could, you know, just for the heck of it, let's hit Control, hold down Control and drag one out. So now we've got a couple different tentacles going. So we've got the main body of our object here, and then we've got these. So if we wanted to merge these down, I can just go over here and say merge down. Now they're still separate, right? If we have our, if we hold down Shift to smooth, they're still separate pieces. However, you already know you can go in here to Dynamesh and just Dynamesh these results, maybe crank that resolution up a bit and then smooth these together. And now you've got all one piece. And then if you want to be like, well, that's not really great for sculpting, okay, fine. Zero mesh half, depth size down to 0. And now you've got brand new geometry, you start sculpting. Another option is you can hit W and go in here and say remesh by union. And so that will give you a Boolean mesh. I always like to do a little, grab a little piece, Control Shift A, geometry modify topology, delete hidden, just if you get rid of any floaters, because ZBrush can sometimes choke on that. And now you can go in here, and now when you ZBrush, let's say keep groups half, smooth groups down to 0 because they're already nice and sliced in there. And now when you ZBrush, it'll keep those polygroups, and it'll actually, let's not do half, let's do same. That's still, let's do double. There we go. So now we're getting new geometry. We're maintaining our polygroups, nice sculptable geo, etc. So you can go there and you can smooth to get thinner and then inflate to get thicker. Okay, but we haven't even really talked about what I wanted to talk about, which is a couple more ways to make tentacles. And in fact, if you wanted to put that plane back on there, we can. So if we get, let's say this is append plane 3D. So now so that plane 3D was sitting out there and it was that full initialized like crazy state. However, you'll notice as soon as I appended it to an object that was already make polymesh 3D, it turned it into a polymesh 3D object. So it is totally sculptable. Now, with this showing, check it out. I'm going to say append a Z-sphere. Take the Z-sphere. I'm going to hit W, and this Z-sphere, actually, I didn't even think about this. let's hit E. So instead of using all of these options to go through here and make this shape, let's just use Z-spheres. So Shift Z, let's shrink this down. And honestly, for some of these, maybe even a lot of these, maybe even all of them, hard to say. Some of these, I would go through here and use Z-spheres, just because you have total control over Z-spheres. So we're gonna hit Q and go in here to draw. And if you want to draw and make it snap it to the exact same size as the previous one, hold down Shift as you're drawing out. Thank you. And it'll make it the exact same size as the previous one. It's also not a deal breaker if you mess that up. If you're like, oh, I made this one a little smaller and I made this one a little smaller. So I'm hitting Q and then W to go through here. And then you can actually hit Q in the middle and then Q in the middle and then Q in the middle and then W. And you can go through here and you can literally make any shape that you want. And it's just Z-spheres. There's no geometry associated yet. However, you can hit A. That'll give you a preview mesh. So if we go down here to our, and this is another thing too, where it's like, oh, I'm using a Z-sphere, but I'm missing options in my custom menu. What's broken? It's a Z-sphere. You're going to have limited options with this. So just be aware. If nothing's broken, you just have context-aware menus. So we're in here. We're using Zero Mesh. I'm going to say adaptive skin. So what we're seeing here when I hit A is an adaptive skin preview. By default, the Dynamesh resolution is set. So this is just going to give you a Dynamesh. So we'll turn that down to 0. We'll hit A again. And now you're getting simple geometry. We're going to take density down to 1. So this is just nice, simple geometry. And it's just a preview. So we tap A, hit Q, hit W, go in here and start moving this stuff around. And again, if you want to go through here and hit E, you can scale thick to thin. Or if you're like, oh, I wanted these all to be uniform and I messed it up. No big deal. I feel like in here, there was another stroke. Yeah, curves helper. You can say scale Z-spheres to draw size. So just make your draw size the Z-sphere scale that you want. And then underneath stroke, curves helper, there is a scale Z-spheres to draw size. It'll make them all uniform. Also, totally cool. Remember we were talking about having like a curve that you can use like an IMM and, you know, make this whatever you want. You could go in here and say stroke. Let's take these down a little bit and we'll put the stroke menu over here. In the curves helper, you can see there is a create curve. So we'll just hit create curve. Oh wait, we got to copy it first. Copy Z-sphere chain and then create curve. And that will take your Z-sphere chain, add that curve to a null object basically. And now we have this curve built from our Z-sphere chain in there. So now if we go to like B, I, brush insert, IMM curve, M, I don't know, necklace, and tap. Now it'll put a necklace along that Z-sphere curve. And again, S to make it bigger or smaller, and then you can still go up here and manipulate this curve, I believe. So underneath stroke, curve, bend start, bend end, snap. You should be able to, yeah, you can still go through here. And so you can update this curve. So that's one way to kind of set your curve. However, if you want a little bit more control, I'm going to delete that out of our scene. We have our Z-sphere here. I can hit A to go into adaptive skin. If you want to, you can say adaptive skin, make adaptive skin. So again, this is just a Z-sphere sitting in here that we can use later, but it spit out a skin Z-sphere in your palette. So I'm going to say append that skin sphere. I'm going to hide that Z-sphere so I'm not confused. So this is just straight up geometry. Now, if I want to pass a piece of geometry or a curve through this, one easy way to do that, Control Shift, go in here to select lasso, Control Shift Alt, Control Shift Alt, delete hidden, Control W to make this all one polygroup. And now if I go through here and say hover over an edge with my Z modeler brush, BZM, polygroup, polyloop, I'm going to tap one, tap another one, tap Alt to cycle through, Control Shift tap between them, delete hidden, and now I can go in here and we can frame with stroke, sorry, underneath curve functions. We can say, you know what, turn off everything but polygroups, frame mesh. It'll put a line right down here. So now we already know BI, brush, insert, IMM curve, scales, And there we go. If you want to smooth this out, we could also just tap, in this case, I could just do like a polish by feature. So deformation polish by feature. That'll kind of smooth that geometry out. And then again, we'll just go ahead, and for y'all, that's deformation. You can do a polish or polish by feature. So we've smoothed that out. And in fact, it's just geometry. So, you know, go in here and use your move brush or whatever. You know, do this and then do another polish by feature. Nice and smooth. Frame your mesh. That'll put that curve line right down the middle. And then again, brush insert necklace. There we go. So we can use that to kind of go through and put that geometry on there. Now, again, this one's going to be kind of hard to tap off and get rid of that curve. So this is a good candidate for going in here to curve functions, delete. And then it is still stuck to that original mesh down here. So that's when split mask points or unmasked points to kind of get those separated. And now we've got this. So, and that's not even what I wanted to show you. So we talked about Z-spheres and how useful they are. But what about now? And also, okay, let's just talk about this. So we have Z-sphere and this, like, okay, I got a worm body on here. You can sculpt on top of this worm body by going down here to Z-sketch. And now we can do a, go in here to edit sketch mode, and that's going to change your brushes. So now when we go through here and let's go to solo, edit sketch. Edit sketch. Yes, that should be right, I think. Let's go out of solo mode. Okay, it's doing something. Huh. It's behaving a little oddly, but basically, if you look up Z-sphere sketching, you'll have more tutorials on this. But basically, you could make an armature, and then if we go out of edit sketch mode, let's turn off A. That'll give you a unified skin. So this is your unified skin. So you could turn off edit sketch, make an adaptive skin, turn on edit sketch, make a unified skin, combine those together, dynamesh them together, and you can have your unified sketch and your armature underneath. And that's kind of one thing you can do. You can kind of start with a worm body and then use Z sketching over it, which is basically kind of like drawing out with those IMM spheres on your object, which is kind of similar to Z sketching. But let's go ahead and we'll delete that Z sphere out of here. What I was really looking for looking to do is we can actually have, so this is all just geometry, right? There's no Z spheres in here. If we add a Z sphere and we take the Z sphere and we take the Z sphere, hit W and move this down below. And then if we go in here and say Z sketch, go in here to edit sketch, we can go through and it like the sketching that we're doing is going to stick to the surface. And in fact, this brush here, you can see it's pretty embedded. This one, sketch A, I guess they're very similar. This probably is controlled by a depth, if I had to guess. Yeah, so just take that embed and pop that out a little bit. So now when we're going here to edit sketch and we're sketching, it'll kind of poke out a little bit. So you can use this for like tree roots. Oops, edit sketch. So if you have like a trunk and you just want to go through here and like do tree roots out, you could go through here and do tree roots, or pretty great for tentacles too. So you can go through here and it, again, very similar to sketching with IMM spheres. The only difference is you can hold down, not one of the only differences, but one of the differences, you can hold down shift and smooth, and you can smooth transitions between these. This one too, you can also go in here to like as line or armature. There is a way to do that where you can like drag off and then you can like hold down shift and you can smooth between the 2 points to straighten it out. So you can do like an armature brush if you want to go through here and like, okay, I want to make a tentacle here and a tentacle here and a tentacle off of here or whatever. You're doing a sea life, right? And then you can smooth the transitions between these. And then when you're all done, You could go in here and say Unified Skin Preview, or just hit A on your keyboard because the Unified Skin is the default for Zsketch. And now you've got all this geometry here. If you like it, say Make Unified Skin. That's going to dump your Unified Skin somewhere out here in your palette. We'll say Append our Skin Z-Sphere. We'll turn off our Z-Sphere so we're not confused. And now we have just a Dynamesh mesh with Dynamesh turned on at that resolution that you can go through and start sculpting. Or I can grab a little piece of this one, Control-Shift-A, split hidden, zero mesh, let's say half, tap size down to 0, and now we have like a simplified piece of mesh here that we can start subdividing and sculpting to make our tentacles. I think that's enough ways to make tentacles. There's probably more. In fact, I know there is, but I'm tired of talking about tentacles. Okay, back to this. Okay, question from Hamburger Big. Can you get a fixed curve resolution regardless of brush size? So, oh yeah, that's a good question. So when we're talking about brush curve, B, C, so there's a bunch of curve brushes in here that we can use that come in handy. So check these out for sure, but we'll stick with curve tube for now. So we've got a curve tube and we have, oh, forgot I hit subdivide. So we go through here and you have a curve res. So if we go in here, you do have a curve res slider. So you can crank that up and you can kind of, let's see, curve res of 1. And as we make our brush bigger, you're going to see it's a little chunkier, like doot, 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 doot. So yes, that is giving you a chunkier version. Then as you make your brush size smaller, you're getting a much smaller curve res. There is a curve res in here. Increase resolution, transition between inserted meshes. Turn on a curve. I feel like this isn't really for contiguous geometry. I feel like it's more for like BI brush insert primitives, M, polysphere, curve brush on in my stroke curve mode. I feel like curve res. I'm not sure though. I'll be honest, I'm not even exactly sure what that does. I'm not positive there's a really great way. You're definitely going to run into this too, depending on like some of the brush. Like in fact, here's a brush that we're going to run into that. This one here, this chain with base. If you make this, if this is big, depending on how it's made, especially if you have like a repeating part that's very big, you're going to start running into limitations. So you're going to want to be like, oh, can I increase my curve resolution? And I don't know that you can. I mean, it looks like that kind of, and it just looks like it smoothed it out. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure. I don't know. Anybody know? Hey, John, I've been playing Skyrim to see those. Yes, this is perfect for those Cthulhu monsters for sure. Nice tentacly. And we know what? We'll do one real quick. We'll do like a little tentacle face just so you can be like, hey, here's the overall body and then here's the tentacles attached to something that is art directed, and then you can go through and sculpt and start detailing. Yara, have you gotten it back to me so we can meet up and online catch up? Oh, I thought I emailed you back. I mean, yeah, okay. I'll message you back today. When a good time might be. Sorry about that. I thought I did. Yeah, it's totally cool. Oh, yes. So yeah, thank you, Hamburger. Mesh balloon is another way. Oh my God, there's so many different ways. So I don't know if we're gonna have enough time, but check these out. So we can go in here to I think it's like mesh lasso. I'm trying to remember the overall, like the term for it. Let's just try mesh balloon. Mesh balloon brushes, mesh extrude brushes, mesh project brushes. All of these ones here, I guess, for the ZBrush 2021.6. these are pretty cool, but basically you have, if you hold down control, you have a bunch of these mesh extrude and mesh project. Here's a mesh balloon, so as you're dragging this around, it'll go through and just give you a mesh. This one's kind of similar to brush curve. Where is it? I know you're in here somewhere. Quad fill and tri fill and curve snap surface. Curve surface, curve tri fill. All of these ones have kind of a similar deal. So you can make your, you know, go through here and make your shape, and then take your brush size down and make this thinner. And you can kind of do like a fill. So these come in handy. There's some really fun stuff you can do there. What was the other one? Oh, I missed one. Let's see. Z-spheres. It's pretty ancient. These Z-spheres are kind of OG ZBrush coolness. So in fact, you could even attach different shapes to Z-sphere chains. It's in the Z-Zoo creatures. You can see that. But I don't even remember how to do that anymore. It is ancient technology, like you said. Shadow box is another one. Yes, yes. So we'll tap off here to get rid of that curve. Okay, fine. Boy, shadow box I haven't used forever. It's cool though. Is that geometry? Shadow box. Wow. Okay, yeah. Geometry shadow box. We'll turn that on. So that'll give you a box here. If we turn off our polyframe. So if you control drag off and then hold down control, let's go back to just regular old mask pen. So if I go through here and I mask something here, it'll give me, you know, extrude all the way through. And this is really fun too for like doing, we'll do like a shape here and then a shape that goes across. So we're controlling the shape from one side and the shape from another. And you can also do a shape from the bottom here. So between those three, you're starting to get something built in, but going through here and then doing like, let's do control. We got brushes to bring it in alpha. So now you can start, let's get rid of this one. And then here's our mask from the side. So it's like, okay, I only want this to be this big. So that'll kind of truncate the sides. But then I'm like, you know what? I want to have a slice through it. No problem. So now we've got star, mask, creating geometry, slice through it, and even from this side too. Let's do like a, let's grab that star again. There we go. So you can get there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with this, but there's shadow box. And then when you're done, you can just hop out of shadow box and now you've got, you know, a kick-ass little shape in there. Use that for tentacles too if you'd like. Let's see here. Let's see, Slime Bridge. Totally forgot about Slime Bridge. Look up Slime Bridge, but Slime Bridge is cool. So if we've got, you know, this little tentacle guy here, let's say Control D. Let's give it a little bit more resolution here. We'll say delete lower. So if I want to say have a let's see if I remember how to use this, or even where it is. Slimy. Is that a, you know, whenever I'm stumped, I'll go to this guy's YouTube and say, what is it? Slime Bridge. Okay, So mask, Slime Bridge is just sitting out there as a menu. Okay, there it is. Thank you, Michael Pavlovich. Slime Bridge. So, for instance, let's try this. Mask, Slime Bridge. There we go. And so wherever you have two pieces masked, you can go through here and you can, let's do this. Let's do Control D one more time. And again, delete lower. I just need all the resolution. So we want to bridge this one to this one. And we want to use Slime Bridge. There's tension. You can increase the tension. You can have more or less bridges or branches. Let's say branches down to 0. And now we can start connecting capillaries down to 0. There we go. So now that'll kind of bridge those together. Speaking of, you could do like an IMM curve or a bend curve and just kind of stick these together. Another option, if you're so inclined, is you can say, okay, I want a shape like this and a shape like this. Hit Control W. Let's isolate. You know what? Here's another cool thing. Let's hold down Shift. Let's go in here to, oh boy, brush, smooth brush modifiers. I'm going to change my weighted smooth mode to 6, and that's going to give me, that's going to smooth my polygroups so that I can make this one round and this one round. And then I can isolate those and say delete hidden. And then you can actually hover over an edge and say bridge 2 holes. Click on this edge, click on this edge, and it'll bridge them. And then you can just pull to the left and pull to the right to change the resolution and put a little bend in it if you want to. So that's another way you could manually go through and bridge 2 arbitrary holes. Yeah, slime bridge and bridge. Oh, God, I didn't even think about this. So, okay, so another thing too, if you want to kind of clean these up, if you want to clean up your tentacles, hold down Shift, go into Sculptors Pro, and this will actually eat geometry away. So if you want to get back to just the head nubbin, you can. Okay, don't forget what I was doing, because this is a cool one. Shoot, I just had it. Yes, okay, I think I remember. So let's say you want to make tentacles out of here. You could go in here and say a couple different ways. You could go in here and mask this, and then you could do like a fiber mesh. And this is going to go in here to modifiers, and we'll say max fibers up. And this is going to be like just hair. But if you take your max fibers down, and in fact, let's go down here to masking, and let's say, turn off view mask. It's still there. It's telling us where we want to start growing our tentacles. But right now it's very hair-like. So let's go in here to our width profile, and let's crank this all the way up. And then let's go in here to our length and crank that all the way up. And let's go in here to our max fibers and crank this all the way down. And let's go in here to our coverage and crank that all the way up. So now we've got just like hair, big, thick hair cards sprouting out of here, right? In fact, let's go in here to base and just make this white, and then tip and make this white. So we also have gravity. Let's turn twist down to 0 so it doesn't twist. And then our gravity here, we'll change this to 0. So now we just kind of have tentacles kind of sprouting out. But let's go up here. So you could use like fibers to start. And remember, we can make these tubes, no problem. I'll show you how in just a second. But now if we enjoy these, let's say length profile, those should all be the same. I'm going to turn off variations, coverage variations, coverage down. Scale root, we'll set that to 1. And scale tip, we'll set that to 1. Length profile all the way up. There we go. And then length down just a bit. Okay, so let's turn our mask back on. Did I mask both sides? What's going on there? Or is it just going through? Anyway, you could use fiber mesh to kind of create tentacles. And the reason I bring this up is because, wait, okay, there's another thing I want to show you. Because we can go in here to BG Brush Groom Hair Toss. So you can go through here and you can start like, oops, wait, can't do that yet. Preview. If we're happy with this, hit accept. And now when we go through here, we can start grooming. Oh, that's another thing too. Let's delete this one. Go back here. Turn on preview. Before we do that, you're going to see we don't have a ton of resolution on here. So we're going to go over here to our segments, and we're going to crank that up to like, I don't know, 16. So that'll give you more segments down the length of this. So now if we go in here and we say accept, when we start grooming this, we can use, it's got a root to tip mask automatically. So you can go through here and start making tentacles with fiber mesh. And then if you want to make them round, actually that's another thing I should have shown you. Right now they're just basically cards. However, which we could, if we wanted to, go through here and say, you know what, let's extrude polygroup all, and then just extrude these out, like I said, and then you can hit D for dynamic. You're going to lose the fiber meshness of them, but at the end of the day, you can end up having something like that. Another cool thing is, and this is getting a little bit weird, but we have our hair cards here. You can go in here to profile and say set this to 4 or 5 or higher, and that'll actually give you tubes as well, and that'll maintain your sculptability. So if we say accept, and then we just go in here, oops, damn. I had ZModeler brush, but if you had your groom brush, you could actually groom through that. There was another thing I wanted to show you. Basically, the IMM curves. There's a curve. Let me show you real quick. Sphere, edit, make polymesh 3D. IMM. BC, brush curve tube. Drag this out. Let's make that a little smaller. And then we'll say, so we're going through here and we want to, you're going to see as we're coiling this, it coils really, really tightly, which like for a tentacle isn't very realistic. Make sure you go in here, or this is an option, go in here to your stroke menu, and underneath curve functions, curve modifiers, or is it under brush modifiers? Max bend angle. It's under brush modifiers. Take this max bend angle. If you crank it up to 90, this will allow you to really coil things around. If you take that down to 0, that will only allow it to bend so far. So this will give you a little bit more realistic of a how things can bend. You're going to see it's going to want to uncoil. It's not going to want to like break itself, I suppose, like if there's like a bones in there. So use that to your advantage to kind of go through here. And in fact, you could make your own custom, like if you wanted to. Let's just do this real quick. Oh boy, this is going to take me back. This is like 2013 stuff. Cylinder, edit, make polymesh 3D, W, scale this in a little bit here. Control Shift, let's switch this. Control Shift, we'll do a knife curve on the side here. And then we'll do a group by normals, zero mesh half, the upsize down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups. And then let's say, that's actually a little bit, let's shrink this down. There we go. So let's say we want like a repeating middle. You know what we could do? Let's do this. Let's grab a cylinder here. Stick this right in here. And you know what? Just for the heck of it, let's do another group by normals. And I'm going to say inset. No, let's not do that yet. Let's say I like what I see here. I'm going to hit W. We're going to do, it's all coming back to me. I'm going to do, come on. Gear, choose it. Remesh by union. I like to grab a little piece, delete hidden. I like to do a little zero mesh, same, keep groups. So here's a start of a tentacle brush, right? Let's go ahead and recap this one. So close convex hole. We'll do an inset, polygroup all, and then we'll do another inset here, and we'll say Q mesh, polygroup all, and then we'll hold down shift and just push that back. So now, Control W, make it all one polygroup. I want this to be the repeating middle, so we're going to grab this one here, say Control W. We're going to grab this one here, say Control W, and then B. You know what? I want this repeating middle. Let's do this. Control Shift S X to expand. Yeah, and then Control Shift X to expand. Yeah. So this is going to be the repeating middle. I wonder if that'll work. Let's try it. B, create insert mesh, new. Go ahead and turn on stroke curve mode. Triparts is on. We'll say weld point, stretch, curve res. There we go. That did work. Okay, so we want to go thick to thin. So we want to do, well, another thing too, we want to make sure the max bend angle is set to 0 so it doesn't coil in on itself. And then we want to do a size. And we don't want to go, we want to go thick to pretty thin. There we go. So now we have a custom tentacle brush. We'll say bend start, bend end, snap off. There we go. So now you've got like a little repeating tentacle brush middle. And in fact, if you want to overcrank, so if you take the Z intensity down, it'll kind of flatten out. But if you crank the Z intensity up, it'll fatten it up as much as you want. You can also go in here to strength multiplier. So if you want to go in here to like 2.6, you can overcrank that even more. So there you go. You got like a little repeating tentacle-y brush. And that is from my SIGGRAPH ZBrush 2013 presentation. Let's see here. If we want to do a wire with a knot, how would you approach it? I would personally do Z-spheres. In fact, I think I have, well, it depends on how exact you want to get. But if you go in here and say knot, oh, I thought I had a knot in there. We could do one real quick. If I wanted to like tie something, that's where I would go in here and say, okay, Q, move, Q, and then just literally, or if I'm tying laces, the ability to kind of go through here and use Z-spheres is super powerful. So again, because you don't have to worry about geometry. So if this is over here and this is over here, or like this, Q up, Q down, Q here. And then again, if I want to make these all uniform, stroke, come on, fine, stroke, curves helper, here we go. So we've tied a knot of sorts, right? And again, if we want to hold down shift, we can make these all uniform. And then we can hit A for adaptive skin, but we don't want Dynamesh. We want just a regular old preview, and then we can say make adaptive skin. So here's our real geometry. We've got our knot here. If I want to smooth these out, I'm gonna hit Control W, do a deformation polish by feature, and then go back in here and do like a deformation inflate. We're working kind of big here, but you get the idea. So now I've got, and then, you know, going in here to your move brush and saying auto masking, and then turn on topological. You can go in here and actually, let's do this, unify, deformation unify, there we go. You can go through here and you could start, let's change that range down. You know, start tightening this up a little bit, but at least your knot is about where you'd want it. Now, if you're a little bit lazier than that, another option would be BI brush insert. Let's go to my custom menu. I think I got like a noodle in here. So it's like, okay, I've got a little half bend noodle in here. I'm gonna say Control, drag out a copy of this like so. And then I'm gonna grab these two, say B, create insert mesh, new. And then now you've got basically a knot that you can drag on there, or B, if you want to have a little more flexibility, you could say, here's a ring, here's another ring, heck, why not? Here's another ring, and then with our rings combined, we could go through here and we could say, this kind of looks like a knot of sorts. Again, just feel free to go in here and make this as knotty as you'd like. And then again, B, create insert mesh, new. And now you've got like a little knot insert brush you could go through and rotate around and stick on something and make it look like somebody went through and made a knot, but really they didn't. That's what I do, is I was feeling lazy. Yes. Cool. Excellent. My pleasure. I need to start getting back into using ZBrush more, because I have been out of the game for a while. Cool, excellent. Glad that helped. And like I've shown you this whole live stream, there's a million different ways. So even, you know, that's a couple different ways, but God, there's so many ways to do stuff. How are we doing on time? Okay, I got 15 minutes. So let's do that Cthulhu head we were talking about. So we're going to start from the Z sphere. And I was thinking, like, okay, the tentacles, yeah. So we'll do in here, we'll say B, let's say X symmetry turned on. Let's just do a Dynamesh. X symmetry. Which direction are we? X symmetry. There we go. Move this back. All right, we'll switch this up. Okay, so B, go through here, and we've got like, I don't know, Cthulhu's usually a pretty angry dude, right? He's always mad about something. Wants to destroy, wants to maim. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's a little bit more of just a, I don't know the mythos. But here's our head, and now we want to kind of start doing tentacles. Now, if I'm going to be, I would caution you against being like, just my opinion, like BS Snake Hook or Snake Hook 2 or whatever with Sculptris Pro turned on, because what happens is, let's turn off X symmetry. You could go through here and start doing tentacles, but as soon as these things meet and you want to kind of do, you know, kind of loop one around the other, and then you're going to be using Dynamesh, it's going to start getting really messy and hard to control. So probably what I would do in this case is just hop right back in here, B curve tube, X symmetry off, and then I'm just going to start dragging out. And again, little tentacles are fine, or if you want to be very specific, bend curve, or if you want to be very specific, Z spheres, or even Z sketches, which will get you there quickly. But again, that's fine. So, boy, what is it? What's the default there? What is that? Curve, bend start, bend end. Or what am I looking for here? What am I trying to do? Maybe I want to lock the start, I think. When I'm doing tentacles that are coming out of a mouth, lock the start, and then, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to tap off. We're going to say hide point underneath your visibility. Geometry modified topology delete hidden. Now, if I drag out a curve, am I crazy? Start, end. What am I missing here? Lock, start, lock, end, repel, straight, curve mode. All right. You know what we're going to do? Bend curve. Split mass points. W. So I've got a tube primitive that I've made. You can make your own custom insert primitive, and then we're just going to hop right in here for the ultimate bend curve. We've got this one here. We want to go thick to thin, so I'm immediately just going to scale it down. We're going to do our start point. We're going to do our end point. We're going to add some resolution, and now I've got total control. Maybe not as much as these spheres, but we've already got geometry in here. So now we've got kind of a tentacle thing going. And just to kind of speed this up a little bit, I'm going to hit W, control drag out a copy, rotate this around, W, control drag out a copy. So basically go through here and do your tentacle madness. And also, once you've got your tentacles in here, you could do a separate mesh and have like little stringy spit globules, like the curve. What were we talking about? A slime bridge type thing. You can have that as a separate subtool. But anyway, So we've got tentacles going, and in fact, let's control drag down and let's rotate this way. All right, so we've got some stuff going, and this is giving me the most amount of control because I can always go through here and I can say, group. I can do an auto groups, and I can isolate these, or I can just by control shift tapping them, or I can hit W and then control tap one of these to unmask just that one, or again, like we were talking about earlier, brush auto masking, topological turned on, or in this case, we have mask by polygroups also. So we turn off topological, do mask by polygroups up to 100. The first polygroup that you touch is the only one it's going to manipulate. So very quickly you can go through here and just start tentacling these up. Now again, if you wanted to start with just to show you, brush curve flats. Let's do flats, curve flat. If we pull out just a strip of geometry, that's smaller. There we go. So we got a strip of geometry, right? We're gonna say split mask points. And just to make it so we can see both sides, we could go in here to display properties double, or we can go in here to geometry dynamic, turn that on, turn smooth down to 0, and turn thickness up. This will give you a preview of what this would look like if the strip of geometry we had thickness. So now you can go through here and you're just manipulating a strip of geometry, but eventually we could turn this into a tentacle. So, oops. So while we're doing that, we're making a strip here, and if we like what we see, we can be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to say dynamic apply. Now this thickness is real. Just be careful when you turn on dynamic, it's going to add more thickness. So turn that down to 0. Turn that back to smooth preview. So we'll do Shift D to turn that off. I like to do a quick uncrease all underneath your geometry crease, and then I'm just going to get rid of these caps here. So we'll isolate. Okay, fine. Okay, green. Delete hidden. So Control W, if we hit D for dynamic, that's going to turn on my smooth, and now we've got basically a tube. We'll do smooth subdiv of 1, apply, delete lower. So if you want to recap these, we can say close convex hole, cap, and cap, isolate. There we go. So now we've got, again, all the different ways we've talked about making tentacles are at your disposal. We can hold down Shift to smooth, inflate, or just use your curve brushes, or just use Z-spheres, or just use these sketches, or just use your spray geometry stroke or whatever. Now, as far as how to integrate these back, I would probably just start, I'm going to keep modeling this, and even if these are supposed to be, let's make these a little bigger. Actually, let's merge these down. You get merged on in there, thank you. So let's say these are supposed to be part of, like, kind of embedded in the head somehow. I would keep them as separate as long as humanly possible. So I'd go through here and be like, okay, fine. These are supposed to be, coming out here, and then we've got X symmetry turned on. So let's go and smooth this down. So let's say these are supposed to be integrated. And maybe not necessarily in a way that's like, let's crank this resolution up just a little bit here. X symmetry turn off. So not necessarily in a way that's like, okay, this tentacle here, and if you want to smooth these tentacles out, just hit D for dynamic. That'll give you a little preview. Because you could have them completely, like, stay completely separate objects. We're just giving an indication of, like, okay, this lip is going to kind of come around and encapsulate this tentacle. If that's not the case, I mean, if this is the case, then you're golden. You just go through here and sculpt this and Z-remesh it and make it look like this is fitting inside of this, like they're two separate objects. However, if the idea is more like, let's crank that resolution back down. These tentacles are just be growing out of the face. I would keep them separate as long as possible. And then let's turn on X symmetry here. Let's go in here to our clay buildup. Let's do a quick mirror and weld. I want to say like Cthulhu had like a bunch of eyeballs, right? Am I crazy in thinking that? Or it was like, I don't know, some sort of cheekbone here, and then like, let's turn off Lazy Mouse. Like there was an eyeball here. It's like a bunch of like little creature eyes. If that's the case, hop back in here, grab a Z-sphere, stuff those in there, and then you can hit W, control drag out a copy. A bunch of different ways to do this too. And this is like your initial sketch where you're like, okay, let me get the volumes in there, let me get the composition, let me get the proportions and all the little stuff you want to dial in. Of course, we're really cruising, but take your time. And I'm going to say grab a little piece of the head, split hidden. So now we've got this, and now you want to make these look integrated. So now, you know, however fleshy and stuff you want to. Oh, another thing too, if you want to sculpt through, turn on transparency with ghost, and that will allow you, it's up here, and that will allow you to sculpt through an object. And then again, just control drag to re-dynamesh, a little higher resolution. So it's about making these pieces feel like they're, you know, part of themselves. And if we wanted to do like comma key, brush, insert IMM, dragon bones, like if the tentacles are integrated, but maybe these horns aren't, we could say split mass points. You know, so we could have these kind of sitting there, and then now, like, okay, this is going to be a completely different material. So this makes sense to have like a fleshy buildup while the horn kind of bursts through the what's it called? The flesh around this, I suppose. Whereas these tentacles are supposed to be built in. But before I do that, move topological range, and then turn mask by polygroup down to 0. So it's usually one or the other. There we go. Sorry, I put that setting on my clay buildup. I'm having a hard time. So we've got our face, we're sculpting on it, and now I want to start integrating these. If I want, I probably do want to be very careful, because at any point, I probably want to be like, you know what, I want to make sure I can manipulate these tentacles later individually. So before they're fully posed, I'm going to go through here and be like, okay, I'm also not going to use Dynamesh either. I'm going to be a little more precise than that. I'm going to first go through here and be like, okay, I'm going to move these things apart. I'll move them back. But if I'm going to start doing my final ZBrush sculpt and these need to be integrated, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to say, and the horns are always going to be separate. That's fine. And the eyeballs always going to be separate. Turn those off. I only want to have my pieces that I'm going to integrate. I'm going to go through here and do an auto groups. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these tentacles in with this mesh here. We'll do an auto group so all the tentacles get their own polygroups. The head gets its own polygroup. Everything is as separated as I want it to be, so I can have individual manipulation over all the tentacles even after they're integrated. Something like this, not touching. They can be close, but just not touching. That look right? So I'm ready to go to my final sculpt. I want these to be the same thing. W, go in here, remesh by union. That's going to do a Boolean operation and merge all those together. Control Shift drag over a little piece of the object, Control Shift A, geometry modify topology, delete hidden, just so you don't have any floaters. That when you ZBrush and you have an error, that's probably what it is you have a little floating mesh that is having a hard time resolving. So now that I have this, if you have details you want to keep, that's totally fine. In this case, I really don't, but you can Control tap the latest point in history. That'll store those points in history. So now if I say ZBrush half, depth size down quite a bit, but keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. What that's going to do is look at all my polygroups and give me an edge loop or an edge ring around the different polygroups. and then simplify my geometry. And then we'll say, you know, we'll do ZBrush half. And if we want to get my detail back, I don't need it in the tentacles, but if I want to get my detail back in my head, I can isolate that, and then we can do project history. We can say Control D to subdivide, isolate this one, project history, Control D to subdivide, isolate, project history. So now I have my detail back in this area of my head. And in fact, if it's symmetrical, I can turn on X symmetry while I'm working in this section. And now I can smooth the transitions between my newly integrated tentacles. And we'll turn off X symmetry while I'm working on my tentacles. And because they were separate when they were Booleaned and Z-remeshed, I have total control over each one of these. So again, I can drop down to like subdivision level 1. Let's turn off dynamic. We can isolate them like this. So we can just hit W and Control tap one of these tentacles and, you know, remove these individually, or like we were doing earlier, Control drag down the tentacle, and let's do BTC transpose classic. So as I'm dragging down, it's a little bit of a harsher line, but then we also know we can Control tap to blur that out. And now I can go through here and we can pose these out. We can wrap them around, you know, smooth that transition, go through and inflate and smooth, and use our move brush with topological. So now it's all one mesh. We got it 85% of the way there, and I still have total control over all of these. So now if I want to coil one around the other or whatever, I totally can. And then I have subdivision history, so I can go in here to X symmetry. We'll turn everything back on. And now it's just a matter of going through and detailing out the mesh. So now go through and, you know, just kind of finish out all the cool, lumpy, bumpy little things you want to do for your Cthulhu little globule head or whatever. And it's 8 o'clock. We made it. Cool. Excellent. Ben start. Is that what I was doing wrong? Ben start needs to stay on. So yeah, when you're doing your curve brushes, go to the videos and you can check out all those settings. Obviously, I don't remember them very well. But anyway, thanks everybody. There's your, we made a Cthulhu, and then also, what were we doing earlier? These little, what was it, desktop? These little guys. Texture, add. Ammonites. This is what all kicked it off. So all the different ways you can create little coily things, and also at the very end, make their ammonite god. Cool. Yes. Oh yeah, I need to finish out my body horror stuff too. I have all the source videos, but yeah, soon.